Good day, good day. Happy Saturday, if it is Saturday when you see this, or happy day whenever you do see this. It's been a minute. Been doing a lot of research on something that I'll brush on today. So there was looting in the Chicago unrest a few weeks ago, and there was a woman who streamed herself looting for nearly 20 minutes. Her name was Taisha Rochan, and in the Kenosha unrest I saw her there too, which was odd to see her in both places. So the thing is that she had been arrested for the looting that happened in Chicago. She had been arrested 3 or 4 days prior and charged, and I'm assuming she made bail. They set her bail at $4,000, meaning she could get out for $400, I think. But the conditions were that she had to wear an ankle monitor or the like, electronically monitored. Well, Kenosha is 60 miles from Chicago, and it's in a different state. So how is that she either doesn't care or defeated the electronic surveillance or monitoring? It's questionable. But I originally thought that perhaps she was involved with all of these other protesters, that many of them are not protesters. I mean, we know that some of them are not protesters, that they are provocateurs, but it's looking to me like many of them are not legitimate protesters, but provocateurs on another level, violent provocateurs, with the probable intention to hijack the BLM movement and demonize it, which in turn would give a boost for the Republican Party. I don't have any evidence of that, but it just seems like, you know, who benefits? Cui bono? It would be the Republican Party. And the Boogaloo Boys, which are a far-right group, have been caught doing such things. I don't remember where, somewhere on the East Coast. But I think it's happened several times now. If you are to watch the protests when they start to get violent, and they don't all get violent, but usually later on in the day, if they get violent, it's usually later on in the day, into the night, of course. But if you're able to closely observe some of the more outrageous elements of these figures, of these groups that are particularly unsavory, I've started to notice that they're really kind of caricatures of normal people. Now, granted, there are plenty of abnormal people, but these are like cartoons. These are, in my view, fabricated, and I think orchestrated. I know there are groups of BLM protesters that bus around from city to city, and I haven't seen a whole lot of unrest, the serious stuff, in two places at once on one night. So I was looking at the last really bad night in Portland, and watching as the mob sort of surrounded right-wing figures, because what happened was there was a Trump support rally, and one of the Trump supporters got shot by a person who claims that he is a anti-fascist, but not in the Antifa group per se. So he shot one of these guys, and that was part of this whole chaotic night. And a right-wing journalist, his name's escaping me right now, got kind of surrounded by the mob as the mob got bigger and more violent. They kind of cornered him into a Chevron station, and some of the stuff being shouted and done while they're trying to break into the Chevron station to go after him, it just seemed a bit like, that's really weird. Like when they started to try and pull at the doors, there's some guy going, "Get in there, get in there, get in there!" Just in a really weird, it didn't seem like a naturally occurring sentiment. I think that's a good way to put it. And then, right as they're like breaking all the windows and about to get in there, the superhero police showed up right in the nick of time. I mean, within a minute of when they would have got in and after the guy. And they showed up in such perfect force and arrived and surrounded the place perfectly when there's chaos all throughout the city. It seemed to me a little bit too Hollywood. It still does. Another thing I don't have proof of, but the big one to me was the shooting in Kenosha. The Kyle, what's his name? I don't know. The guy that shot two people from the ground after shooting a guy in the head, and the crowd chased after him. The same sort of thing was going on there, where people were saying and doing things that really seemed odd. Like, he's running at a trot down the street, and the crowd starts to go after him. A guy behind him is sprinting after him, and when he catches up to him, swings at his head and misses from behind, and then just kind of walks to the sidewalk. Doesn't continue pursuing or anything. And then when he goes to the ground for apparently no reason, maybe he was supposed to go to the ground from being hit in the head and didn't. I don't know, but it just seems like an act. It's very strange. Because when he goes to the ground, there are strange gunshot sounds that aren't part of his gun that are right there. Sounded like a larger caliber than what he had. Could have been a firework going off like right there, or I don't know what. But also, the guy that allegedly attacked him with a skateboard didn't. It looked like it at first, like he was swinging the skateboard at him, but he kind of like he like set the skateboard on top of him and then fell over it and then grabbed it to run off, and then allegedly he was shot in the head. So that was pretty odd. I mean, all of it has got odd written all over it. I mean, the other thing, of course, is that after these guys got shot, he got up, went down the street without anybody pursuing him. Although he looked around with a gun, of course nobody pursued him, although everybody pursued him with a gun at first. But he's walking down the street, and the police came, and he put his hands up to surrender, and even tried to get in one of the cars, and they just drove past him. They ignored him. Well, that's more than a little bit odd. That they never set up any kind of a perimeter or anything. They were just rushing in, and they didn't even stop for a gunman walking down the street after a shooting. That's not weird. That's like almost impossible. So that is strange. And then I was watching some footage from Ruptly, which is a group that you see a lot on RT. They had a video person there and were running a live stream. So after the shooting, on that live stream, they show these guys, I guess the police, I don't know, they're in a big Humvee kind of a vehicle, they just pick up the body and kind of throw him in the car, like, you know, no crime scene tape or anything like that. They just left his shoes on the ground and his skateboard on the side of the road and threw his body in the car. Okay, I thought that was really strange. You know, I bet there would have normally been quite an investigation over an incident like that. And just throwing his body, you know, lifting him up like he's unconscious and throwing him in the... I mean, it just doesn't... I don't know what procedure is, but I can't imagine that that was it. But the other thing that got me was that after this happened, there's still a couple guys kind of guarding the scene, and then the alleged girlfriend of the skateboarder shows up in hysterics that to me just looked like really bad to maybe mediocre acting, but obviously obviously scripted. And okay, so I could be wrong with a lot of this stuff, I really could, but I don't think I am. And you can find the video I'm talking about somewhere. I think I found it on Facebook, of the RT, or not RT, Rupley, R-U-P-T-L-Y. And, you know, like they asked the Rupley camera person for their name and phone number, and she refuses and says she doesn't think that she should give out her phone number, and that they keep the video on the Rupley in, you know, overseas in Europe. So they keep the video there so you can watch it. And he just says, oh, okay. But, so she's a camera person for this organization on location, and she doesn't have any business cards at all. She won't give them a phone number at all. And they just take her word as a witness. And that's that. So anyways, the skateboard chick shows up, has this crying fit, sort of, finds his skateboard there, like that's the big, oh my god, it was him moment, I think. And she kind of stomps off and screams at one of the cops, it's all your fault, kind of thing. And he like grabs her by the shirt and pushes her away in a really bad acting kind of way. And I hope anybody who's watching this goes and finds that footage. In fact, if I find it, I'll put a link in the description here. I'd really like some feedback, because maybe I just need a reality check. But if I'm right, that means that a lot of all of that was staged. Because the other thing is, the other people that tried to attack him, one of the guys, the first guy that tried to attack him and that wasn't shot, ran to the side of the road, but right before he got to the side of the road, like, started to walk, and then just kind of looked into the camera as he walked by. Like, if you're running from somebody shooting everybody, you're not going to stop running when you get to the edge of the street at the sidewalk. You're going to find cover, and you won't care if there's a camera on you. It's just all kinds of small anomalies, and I would love some feedback from anybody else who has the stomach to go back and look slowly at the entire incident, you know, frame by frame. Just take a look at it. Yeah, it requires a certain amount of emotional detachment, because if that's real, that's a really ugly thing to look at. But in slowly looking at it, I didn't see anything to be disturbed by. The only thing that was kind of disturbing, and this is the other thing, the guy that got shot in the arm with a high caliber rifle, and instead of it just piercing his arm, it exploded his bicep, which you can't see in the original shot, but there's video of one of the camera guys finding him. And the second that he's shot, I mean, the very second that he's shot, he starts screaming medic and running away. I think most people, when they get shot, they don't even realize they got shot right away, let alone find the clarity to start trying to find a medic. Again, I could be wrong. That one I'm not sure about, but it's just one of many things. But in the in his arm being exploded like that, there was a couple shots of his arm like that, a couple of which he's still holding a handgun in that hand, which he kind of tried to tackle the guy with a handgun in his hand. Is very strange. That he was able to hold on to the handgun after getting shot in the bicep and having it blown apart is extremely strange. And the fact that he's there for a photograph still holding the gun in his hand, in that hand, I don't, you know, once again, I could be wrong, but that just doesn't seem plausible at all. And yeah, so I really question all of it. I really question all of it, and any kind of information that would help clarify that for me, I would really appreciate. And any kind of nod saying, yeah, that is pretty strange, I would really appreciate as well. In any case, I need a reality check, you know, because what that would mean would be that the entire thing was another 9/11 to further racial tensions and further chaos in the country, which, you know, a lot of it we already know is happening, but to this extent is on a whole other level. Although 9/11 was on that level, this involves a lot of people, though, because the people who got way out of hand and were lighting the whole town on fire with what kind of fuel, I don't know, but they seemed to be burning down garbage trucks like it was nothing. Those people were almost all from out of town, and they were the violent ones. Those are the ones that got arrested. So the ones that were really outraged and causing true violence weren't people from Kenosha. They were from out of town. So that's very quite curious. Now, it makes me think, if the person I originally mentioned, Taishiana, was involved in the violence, which I don't know if she was involved in the violence at Kenosha, because it hadn't really started yet. But when she was in Kenosha, she said, our city getting crazy. Like, wait a second, she's from Chicago. So her saying that that's her city, does that mean that she's an actor doing both places? And does that mean that all the looting that she did on video with her own name was in part because she was immune to being prosecuted for it? As I guess her friend said in an interview, she didn't think that they'd get arrested for it. Is she immune? Is she, I mean, because she was involved in some serious looting, I mean, violently looting, breaking shit, and for like 20 minutes, just going after it in a mall. And she kind of hinted at doing more looting stuff on her Facebook page on the days of the unrest in Kenosha. Although she never mentioned Kenosha. Anyways, more so. The question that I'm posing is, how much of this is only fabricated to divide left and right, black and white? And how much of this, how widespread is this? How much of it in Portland is the more violent elements, so that fascism can come into play, so that the National Guard gets called into all these cities? Is that what's going on here? It's just a question I have. Also, the gentleman that shot the far right-wing protester in Oregon last Saturday, I think it was shot and killed by police last night. And it looks like he was shot in the back. He was not part of Antifa, he said, but he was an anti-fascist. And he regularly attended the protests, so he was kind of part of the group. So that's going to be, it's Friday right now on a holiday weekend, Labor Day. It's Friday on a Labor Day weekend, and I can't, I mean, one of Portland's own of the protesters got shot. Sounds like in the back by 4 cops that all unloaded on him. I don't know about unloaded, but all 4 of them shot at him. I wonder what the protests are going to look like tonight, because they were pretty violent even against press last night. I saw some of that, and it was like they were roughing up the press and arresting them, and it didn't seem, it seemed more aggressive than usual. It seemed like they had declared a riot when there was just not one going on for the purposes of stopping the protest. But then they were even roughing up the press. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it was before or after the guy got shot. But I can't imagine what the protests are going to look like tonight. If I had to place bets, I'd say it's going to be spectacular. And I don't mean that necessarily as a good thing. Yeah. This is a very dark set of events on a trajectory that is not really dithered from going toward a dark place. And I really think that at least the left is being fabricated a lot, and I think also the right is. I think some of these militia guys aren't really militia guys. I think that there's just a big stage being put together for other purposes. If nothing else, it could be just distraction from this vaccine bullshit, because they fast-tracked the FDA. I mean, the FDA already approved a medicine that's not even done with its clinical trials. That's I have no words for what that is. But it's happened, even considering it would be ridiculous, but that's what's already happened. And then Trump said that he expects that it'll be out, you know, in October, I think, this year though. Before even clinical trials are up. So he's pushing, let's see. He's pushing for the vaccine to be out no matter what. No matter if it's safe or not. So, and they're planning on trying to mandate it. The wording that they've used has been like, well, that pregnant women will be exempt. Well, you don't have to be exempt from something that isn't mandatory. So, yeah, it looks like they're going to try and make it mandatory. I'm not having it. And I know a lot of the people in the country aren't having it either. It's very, very dangerous at the very least. And other things are involved. This is not about a vaccine. The vaccine isn't even about a vaccine. So think about it, look into it, and be prepared for a really dark winter, I guess you might say. Take care.